Voters in New York City, Virginia, and New Jersey will head to the polls on Tuesday to elect a mayor and two governors. The votes are seen as a test for both the Republicans and Democrats ahead of next year's midterms. In New York City, Zohran Mamdani is being tipped to become the next mayor. Mamdani has caused controversy for identifying as a democratic socialist and for his criticism of Israel. Mamdani defeated the state's former Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, in the primaries. Cuomo is now running as an independent candidate. Let's bring in David A. Graham. He's a staff writer at The Atlantic, and he's known for his political reporting. He's also published a book called The Project, How Project 2025 is Reshaping America. David, welcome to DW. Now, these races come 1 year, almost exactly, after Donald Trump's election win. What can they tell us about the political mood right now in the country?
So all of these races have their own local dynamics, but I think the margins and the things that people have been talking about them tell us some things about how people are responding to Trump. Something we saw in Trump's first term is that in 2017, in these elections, and in 2018, Trump's Republicans fared poorly, and I think we're likely to see something like that in Virginia and in New York City again. There's also an open question in New Jersey whether Trump is sort of remaking the party enough to make inroads into a traditionally Democratic state.
In New York City specifically, which is the one election that's getting most attention, I'd say, Zohran Mamdani brings fresh progressive energy, a lot of positive energy as well. And then we have Andrew Cuomo on the other side, who is running on experience. Is that the split that we're seeing across the Democratic Party in the country?
I think it cuts to several of the splits. There's both an ideological split. Mamdani is clearly in the left wing of the Democratic Party, and Cuomo is more towards the center or even the conservative wing of the party. But there's also an age difference. Cuomo is much older and has been around for a very long time. Mamdani is 34. There's also a kind of stylistic difference in the way they communicate. And then simply an outsider versus insider dynamic with Cuomo, who's been in many positions and whose father was the governor, being the sort of quintessential insider. So all of these are important tensions for the Democratic Party right now.
In your book, you look at how Trump and his allies are reshaping U.S. politics. Are the Democrats offering any clear alternative vision to that?
I don't see a clear single national vision, and I think this race is an important one for that because it gets to whether the party might move in a more leftward direction, and also who can be the face of the party. Because of Joe Biden's retirement and Kamala Harris's defeat, there doesn't seem to be a clear face for the Democrats now, somebody who can set the agenda. And we've seen former President Obama endorsing Mamdani, going on the stump for some of these other candidates. And the fact that he is the only sort of unifying voice years after he left office, I think, says a lot about where the Democratic Party is.
Mm-hmm. Are they then showing any signs of renewal as a party, as a whole? Or are the Democrats still 1 year after their election defeat, mostly reacting to the president and what's coming out of the White House?
It feels to me like they're mostly reacting. And I think they have the advantage here that Trump is unpopular. And so that's going to help them in these races. In some ways, they don't need to do a lot to do well this year and potentially next year. But they will need to do more if they're going to win the presidency in 2028. And they need to start moving toward that.
2 weeks ago, we saw a lot of people get on the move. Millions turn out for the so-called No Kings protest. Do you think Democrats will be able to translate that discontent into votes for them and then build on it to kind of cement the advantage that could give them?
I think that's the fundamental question in American politics for Democrats right now. Those No Kings protests, I think, have been very successful in part because they have been grassroots protests, not led by the Democrats. The Democratic Party seemed to be running to catch up with those. And even as Trump's approval rating slides, we've seen the Democratic Party's approval rating has also done poorly. So they have some work to do to convincing, voters don't like Trump, but Democrats have not convinced them that they are the solution to Trump.
You've covered, of course, several election cycles already. In your opinion, is there anything that feels different this time around about how Americans are engaging with politics?
Yeah, I think what's different right now to me is the way not that voters themselves are reacting, but the way the sort of institutions of society are reacting, whether that's universities or major media organizations, the sorts of big companies, Silicon Valley, people who've sort of accommodated themselves toward Trump, and that's changed the way American politics is acting. But I think in many ways voters are seeing it kind of the same way, and we'll get a chance to hear from them in these elections, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you think the Democrats are seeing the sign of the times? Are they taking the steps that they need to take to build a solid platform, not only for the midterms, but already maybe building a base for the next presidential election?
I don't think they're there yet. And part of that is simply they have so many disagreements about what that platform should be. And there's no shortage of people who would like to be the leader of the Democratic Party. But their visions are so different, not just in terms of ideology, but in terms of style, in terms of communication, in terms of age, in terms of geography. And so these visions are all competing, and there hasn't been a way for any one of them to sort of come to the fore and dominate so far.
In these three elections that we'll see tomorrow, what will you be watching most closely for, signs of where U.S. politics might be heading next?
I think I'll be watching the New Jersey election to see, clearly who wins. But even if it's a very close election, that will tell us something about how Trump is making inroads in sorts of working class voters and in places close to New York. And then I'll be looking at the margins in the other races. We expect Democrats to win in Virginia and, of course, Mamdani in New York City. But how much they each win by will tell us something about how strongly voters are reacting to Trump, and also how effective those two different styles of campaigning we're seeing from Mamdani and from Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, relative moderate, how those are resonating with voters and what that means for the message in 2026.
As journalist and author David A. Graham, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.